in check. That's the Holy Spirit's job, and we need to make sure that we're not trying to take the place of the Holy Spirit. But both parties, men and women, husbands and wives, have the responsibility unto God to obey the Scriptures, regardless of what your spouse does or how they respond. And talking about the constant pounding and nagging, Proverbs 31 says that the virtuous wife, that her husband's heart safely trusts her. What do you think that means? It means that she's not running him down, because if she's constantly running him down, tearing him down, criticizing, nagging, then his heart will surely not safely trust her, and then he will not open up to her, and intimacy will be destroyed.
Ladies, you can't save us anyway. There's no way you can save us. So it just doesn't work. But the louder you get, it actually drives us further away. I'm just speaking of how men are, okay? Might make us want to do it less for you if we hear it over and over. You can't save us, but there's something about your inner beauty that draws us to you and wants us to lay down our life for you. When we first met you, it may have not been the inner beauty. It might have been the way you were dressed and the way you looked. And, we were ready to swim across the ocean for you, whatever. You want to go to Walmart? Yes, I'll go to Walmart. I like Walmart now. But when we were dating, I'd go anywhere with my wife. If she said she wanted to go look at porta potties, I'd say, honey, I like porta potties. We would lay down our life for her. But there's something about that inner beauty, that gentle, that quiet spirit that says, I'll lay down my life for you. Men don't respond to the wife very well when she's trying to act in authority. It's ugly to us. There's actually a shame in it when the woman acts in authority because she has no authority upon her head. We respond when women act within the order of how God has designed them. The Word tells us in Colossians chapter 3:19, husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. And that's our job. Part of our job is not to be bitter toward you. But your gentle, quiet spirit helps us not be. It promotes that in our life. To not be bitter against you. There's some reasons why men do not fulfill their God-given role. One of those, our faith is weak. Maybe we've never seen it modeled in our life. No one ever modeled, no other men in our life ever modeled the laying down their life for the wife. Maybe it's because we don't have the confidence that we need, because we see the wife as a spiritual one. If you see the wife, not that that's the wife's fault, it's the perception of the man. We see the wife as a spiritual one, and therefore, how could we ever lead spiritually? Because she knows the Word so much more. Sometimes she reminds us of that on a regular basis. Sometimes it's just because we're lazy and spiritual lethargic. And then we're okay with just the status quo in our marriage. And we're not willing to lay down our life for the Lord or for her. And sometimes we don't step up because we have a wife who isn't going to follow our lead or even believe in us. Sometimes it may be because she always criticizes, oversteps, demeans us, and tears us down.
So we talked about reasons why some reasons men don't fulfill the role. And like he said, because sometimes the wife is critical, oversteps. And, it's easy for us ladies to do that because we're like, we want it now creatures. Men are slow to move. And sometimes that drives me nuts, I'll just be honest. I'm like, let's do it now. Let's get it done. You know, I am so not afraid of confrontation. I'll just get right in there and I'll get her done, you know. And he's like, well, you know, just think about this and pray, you know, and just, you know, that's the way men are sort of kind of natural born procrastinators in a way. They like to take their time and really think things through before they make a move. But us ladies are like, let's go, let's do this. And we just can't wait. And it drives us nuts to wait on these guys. And so we're like, come on, you know, we're nagging and we're like, come on, you got to do this. I want you to do this. And you haven't done this yet. Blah, blah, blah. And so it's easy for us to do that because we're kind of natural at that. But I'm going to share some of the ways that I think wives tear their husbands down. Oh, by the way, he told my dirty secret. I have a fetish for porta potties. Not really, but anyway, it was funny. So ways that wives tear their husbands down. She may imply or hint that she is more spiritual or more in tune with the Spirit than he is. Imply or hint that she knows or understands the Bible better. Remind him constantly that she studies the Word and prays more than he does. Takes control of household responsibilities because she feels he is inadequate. Keeps secrets of the household from him because she feels he's too weak or lacks faith to handle it. Imply or hint that she doesn't trust his spiritual leading or discernment. Constantly giving him too much spiritual guidance, advice, and encouragement. It's okay to do that, but we can take it a little too far sometimes to where it's nagging and tearing him down. Just having the general overall feeling that she is more spiritual than he is. He can sense that, you know. Having the attitude, I can hear God for myself. I don't need you to tell me. I've heard that. And yes, you can hear God for yourself. But if your husband's telling you something, God has already told you to submit to his authority. So, just so you know. Having the haughty, I told you so attitude if he fails. That's some of the ways that wives can tear down their husbands. And all these things, you know, they not only tear him down and destroy his ego, but they when we focus on these things, they cause us to lose respect for him. And that hinders or completely destroys a marriage when that happens. And just by the way, thinking ourselves to be wiser than our husband is a sin of pride. And the Bible warns against that sin of pride, being wise in your own eyes. And kind of what I taught at the retreat was that how some Christian women, you know, kind of feel like they are so much more spiritual than their husbands, and they're constantly reminding them of it and stuff. Pointed out that can be spiritual bullying, actually, and that definitely is not going to encourage him to step up. And some of the reasons why there's a lot more, but some reasons why women have a difficult time, I believe, submitting and respecting her husband's role is that she has fear or trust issues from a past relationship or from this relationship in the past that needs to be healed. Her husband refuses to step up. She doesn't trust her husband because he's not in submission to Christ or not a Christian. Or she has spiritual pride and feels superior spiritually to her husband.
Whatever the reason, men choose not to step up. The fact is we need to step up. And the wife, if the man doesn't step up, the wife is forced to make the decisions in the home and make decisions about life that she was not that she can't make decisions, but she was not meant to make the decisions or all the decisions for the home. I'm reminded of Adam and Eve, and Eve sinned by eating the apple or whatever fruit that was. And so we kind of give her the bad rap. Eve eat the apple. If it wasn't for Eve, then we wouldn't we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. The fact remains that the husband was real close, and he didn't stop her. And Eve ate the forbidden fruit, and the man submitted to her. She submitted to the serpent, and the man submitted to her, which is not the order of creation. The design of creation, the man was first. God made him a helpmeet Eve, to be a helper to Adam. The man has a responsibility to help create an atmosphere in the home that helps the wife live a righteous life. I can't live a righteous life for my spouse. But I can help create an atmosphere in the home that helps her live that can promote that righteous life. If your wife is right, you can submit to one another, but when she is not, we must lead as men. We have a responsibility to lead in righteousness, no matter how sweet those words are that come out of her mouth. We are to create a place with less temptation, an atmosphere with less temptation. Adam failed to protect his wife from the serpent, therefore leaving her vulnerable as she sinned, and her sin caused Adam to sin as well. They both paid dire consequences for their actions. Humanity paid dire consequences for their actions because they got things out of order. Man did not provide the covering that he needed to provide. Adam is responsible for the sin of mankind, and the husband is responsible for his whole family.
Because the husband is the head of the wife, therefore he would be the head of his children as well. He is held responsible and accountable for what happens in the family. So I'm going to tell you a story about Ahab and Jezebel I'm not going to turn there, just kind of summarize the story out of 1 Kings. Ahab was a king, Jezebel was his wife. And, I know mentioning the word Jezebel among church women is taboo. If you guys don't like to hear that word or think that you might have anything in common with that woman. But God did put that story in here as an example to us, so we need to take heed and see what he wants to tell us. So King Ahab, he was all depressed, having a fit because this Naboth guy refused to give him his vineyard. Who refuses the king? And so, boy, that really hurt his ego, and he wallowed in his self-pity, stayed in bed. He was just all mourning because of this. He didn't get his way. And so while King Ahab was busy feeling sorry for himself, his wife Jezebel went and took matters in her own hands. And she used her husband's authority to call the king's officials together and create documents, legal documents, that would carry out the sordid plan that she had to have Naboth killed so that her husband could have the vineyard that he wanted. And so Ahab got the vineyard, but obviously the Lord wasn't very happy with it. And he told Elijah, go speak to Ahab and tell him that dogs will drink of his blood in the very same spot that Naboth was killed, and that dogs would eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. And it just so happens that she was later mutilated in that very spot. And of course Ahab died in that spot where Naboth was killed. See, when an unbalance of roles comes in the home, however it comes about, whose ever fault it may be, there are dire consequences for both parties to pay. Women who have to live with a man who's not submitted to God, they pay the consequences of that, of his sinful life. All the heartache, and sacrifice, and shame upon their family because he lives the way he lives. and shame because they're sitting in church and he's not there, and everyone's going, "Where's your husband? Where's your husband?" It brings shame upon the family. It brings shame upon the wife when the husband doesn't step up and do what he needs to do. And it brings shame upon the man when his wife disrespects him, especially in public. So, both in the story of Adam and Eve and in the story of Ahab and Jezebel, there were dire consequences to pay unto death. Actually, that is why we die now, because of that sin of Adam and Eve. We were supposed to live forever on the earth. So, like Adam, some husbands fail to protect their wives, and I'm going into your, and some, like Ahab, some shirk their responsibility as the head of the wife.
Word tells us in 1 Peter 3:7, husbands, honor your wives as a weaker vessel. Now, ladies, we might not like to hear that word, weaker vessel, but as a man, we should want to make things as easy as possible in our life. I mean, if we love our wife, do we not want to make things as easy as possible upon our wife? I think sometimes what we do, and this is in my notes, I just want to share it with you just for a minute, is we have the idea of what a woman's supposed to be and to do in the home. Because that's what we see. The only problem with that in our culture is a woman works often. And she comes home from work and she's still seen in that role. Cook, clean, help kids with the homework, tuck the kids in, do all of these chores and responsibilities, be there for me in intimacy at nighttime. And we got all of these roles intermixed, but yet she is actually playing the role of provider. Not saying that women shouldn't work, because in our culture sometimes they have to. But it's not right for me to have an expectation, or for you then, to have an expectation that a woman carry this certain role out without our assistance and help, when she is actually fulfilling part of our role as provider. Husbands, honor your wives as the weaker vessels. Put them first. Try to help them understand that you love them and care for them and want to lighten their burden. I remember I was at Promise Keepers several years ago, and in the conference they said, men, here's how it needs to be. When you get off work, you need to know you're going to your second job. And if you don't look at it like that, you will fail. So we have a mindset. I don't know about you, when I get off work, I want to go sit down, get a cup of coffee, relax, get the remote, do those type of things. When actually what we may need to be doing is looking at what can I do to help lighten the load of my wife, especially if she works outside of the home. So if the wife does work, we can practice our love for her. I'm going to talk about some practical things here. Washing the clothes, washing the dishes, changing the diapers, vacuuming the floor, picking your dirty underwear up off the floor.
Yes.
These are practical applications of love. We say, well, I would die for you. When you married her, I would die for you. Then pick your underwear up off the floor. Start there. Don't look at the woman's role to do the things that you think in her mind are designed for women until you've learned to first lay down your life for her. They are emotional creatures. I believe it's one of the ways we know that physically they're a weaker vessel, but also I believe because of the emotional, the fact that they're emotional creatures are another way. They get easily overwhelmed with all the things of life and trying to fulfill the roles that they need to fulfill. And yet we as men need to step up and say, I love my wife. I might not ever have to lose my head for my wife, but I'm going to learn to love her and lay down